Started. There we go. We're recording. So, welcome and thank you for those that have been waiting there. Nice to have you along, and I thank you for your patience. We had a few technical skills, but it was actually nice to see how helpful Team Blab is being with this new platform. How they just jump on there and help you out. I think it's amazing.
That was really impressive. I just thought it would be like maybe like text chat or something, but that was really cool how he jumped right in there.
Yeah, that's the second time that's happened for me, and I think it's great. And thank you, Chuck, for reminding me about that. Just putting "add help" there, and someone comes along and helps you out. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
So, Jen, do you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, well, first of all, this is my first Blab, so thank you everybody for being here with me on my first one. And on that note, I'm going to be totally one of those like super cheesy people because I have to Instagram the crap out of everything. And I'm literally going to take a picture of me on my first Blab. Yay! Okay, so I'll Instagram that later. So yeah, I am Jen Herman from Jen's Trends, as you can see behind me. And I actually started a blog a little while ago, a couple years ago, actually almost 3 years ago now, on social media. And I was teaching people how to use, social media in general. And in the process, I came across Instagram. When I started using it as an end user, fell in love with it as a platform. And the more I tried to learn how to use it as a marketing tactic, there was nothing out there. Everything was very like more people, like more posts. There wasn't any real tactical stuff. So I decided to start writing about it and use my blog as a platform to grow that, that presence. And I've kind of become known now as the Instagram girl. So
Yeah.
I frequently get invited to speak or teach and coach people on how to use Instagram marketing. And I love it for its capacity because it is such a unique tool compared to most other social media platforms from a marketing perspective. So that's kind of how I got to where I am today. And I'm super excited because we actually met on Instagram, I believe. So that's another one of the reasons I love it. It's such a great way to connect with people and build those kind of relationships and further those business opportunities that we get just from meeting people on such an easy platform.
Yeah, awesome. And I was just mentioning while we were waiting there that you had your blog chosen, I think, 2 years in a row as best social.
Yep, by Social Media Examiner. Every year they run it's not really a contest, but they run this promotion and you have to get nominated. So it's not like they just turn around and say, here's who we think it is. It's actually determined by their readers. Your blog has to get nominated. You get on the short list of 25. And then from the short list, they go through and choose the top 10 that they think are the most beneficial social media blogs for people to rely on. And so, yeah, I won 2014 and 2015. So fingers crossed,
Awesome.
maybe another year.
That's so amazing because it's been quite a short time for you focusing on Instagram too, right?
Yeah, I've been doing Instagram for about 2 years now.
Yeah.
The blog's been about 3 years. So I was a latecomer to Instagram. I'm always the first person to admit that. I'll raise my hand. I was like, who needs another platform? I mean, come on. We have like everything else we're doing every day. So I was definitely not one of the early bandwagoners by any means, but it's definitely something that's grown in popularity and presence, and it's something you can't really avoid anymore.
True. And I think what I've liked about what I've seen you do in the last couple of years is that you just dug in, you just used it, you started learning, and then you were writing consistently, new blog posts and sharing things, and it built your audience. And look at where you are now. I remember when I connected with you, I think you only had about 400 and 500 followers at that time on Instagram. And now I think, what are you up to now?
I'm over 6,000.
Yeah, that's amazing for
Yeah.
like that's fantastic. So I really liked watching your growth over the last couple of
Thank
years.
you.
So when I decided to do this Bright Minds Blab chat series, I'm like, I definitely got to ask Jen to get on. And I didn't know that this is your first. So that's really awesome.
It is. I've got another one scheduled this week and then another one next week. So I'm definitely starting to get more active with them. But this is my first official Blab. So I subscribed like I think about a month ago. But it's my first one actually like fully being here and live on screen.
Excellent. Awesome. So I decided, because my background is in learning and development, that we could dig into microlearning on Instagram. And so I know you had a few things you wanted to mention. I believe, as I mentioned a bit earlier today, that the thing I like about Instagram is the video and then the image focus. And so I do read what people put, of course, on their posts, but it's a mostly visual platform. And you said that you recommend to your clients a certain way of using Instagram to help in the microlearning sort of process. Would you like to sort of elaborate on that for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's anybody who wants to share any form of education in the microlearning context. Instagram is a great way because it is very much a micro platform. It could even be a micro blog if you wanted it to be. You have 2,200 characters per caption. So, not that I recommend that, but some people actually do put a photo and then they actually put these really long captions that are basically a mini blog. And they don't have a blog. They don't have a platform where they do that, and they use Instagram as that platform. So if they're writing, 400 words, you could squeeze that in there, and it's not necessarily ideal for everybody. A lot of people are not on Instagram to read, and they don't want to have to scroll through all that text. So I don't advise that unless it's a kind of exclusive situation. But it is a platform where you can do that too. And so because you have that opportunity to connect with people, through a visual connection, it's such an emotional connection. The photos, it's something where you're like, hey, it's positive, negative, good, bad, happy, sad. You're going to have an emotional connection with an image. It might even be dismissive. You're like, I don't care about that photo, and you kind of scroll past it. But there's something that pulls people in with the photo, and that's where you can kind of lock them in and use the caption to kind of, share more of you, whether it's your story or your, the educational topic that you're trying to share. And when I say educational, I mean anything, tips, tutorials, advice, inspiration, anything to kind of, help support your audience. And it's such a great way to do that. Like I use it for all my blog posts. Every time I have a new blog post, I post that to Instagram and I use the caption to tell a little bit about what the blog post is about and then say, go click on the link in my bio to get to my blog. So I'm using it as an educational tool to get people to learn how to use, social media.
Yeah, which is great. And I like when you do those posts, you have the text on the picture. What app do you use to do that?
PowerPoint. I'm the first person to admit I love PowerPoint. I grew up, I guess you could say, using PowerPoint, and I use PowerPoint all day, every day for my day job, and I'm really comfortable in there. And while I'm familiar with Photoshop and Pixlr and other, apps, for me, if I look at something, even if I look at something in Canva, I look at that, I can recreate that template in PowerPoint faster than I can create something in Canva. And I love Canva. It's great for anybody that doesn't have extensive, technical skills or that kind of graphic mindset or that sort of thing. But for me, I just go back to PowerPoint, design it myself, put things where I want them, lay them out. So I do almost everything in PowerPoint. But yeah, so I create those and I do them specifically, on a template. It's got the same border, the same font, shape, size. I might change the color a little bit, but then the background image changes. So it's something that it's become recognizable that when people see it, they know that's a Jen Herman blog post. It's not something that they're like, what is this?
That's totally true. I like your consistency that way, and I have noticed that with the way that you push it out there. And like Chuck is saying here, Instagram is the primary way that he's learned about your new posts, and that's how I find out too. Because in Twitter, for example, I have much more tweets are happening, but I notice when you post that on Instagram too, and I think that's a big difference there. Now, one of the things you're saying, so in PowerPoint. So then you're creating that on your PC, but how are you importing it then onto your phone since Instagram is mostly a mobile platform to be able to post that?
For me, the easiest thing is I actually just email it to myself and then I just download it from my email to my phone. There are a number of apps. Obviously, you could use Dropbox. There's some other apps that you can do that if you have it on both your PC or your Mac and then your phone, as long as you're on the same wireless connection, you can actually drop things back and forth, much like a Dropbox type feature. So you can use any of those kind of things to get something from your desktop over to your phone. But for me, if it's just one image, I literally just hit email, attach, send, download, and it's in my camera roll and ready to go for upload.
Well, that's awesome. And do you find that you get more response or engagement from a video than a photo or vice versa, or is it equal?
For me, I don't use video. I'm horrible. I'm the first person to admit, I'm sorry. I'm just not good with video. It's not my strong suit. I know I need to be better about it. It's on my top of my to-do list is video. But I definitely don't use it nearly as much as I should, even at all. But I've heard from a lot of people that they do get more engagement on video because people tend to get more, again, it's that emotive connection that much more. And you can put those calls to actions or those messages. Again, in a microlearning context, somebody who does this really well is like Home Depot. And they do their little, I think they actually do them for Vine, but then they share them to Instagram. And they're these like little, 7-second videos on tutorials on how to do, home improvement projects or repairs and things like that. And it's this little stop motion video that's so impactful because it in 7 seconds tells you exactly how to complete a project that would normally you would research for 20 minutes online. So things like that are extremely rewarding if you have a way to be able to connect with your audience through either a product or service that way.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen some of those Home Depot, and I remember seeing one. I think it was even just about putting a nail in drywall or something. And yeah, in 7 seconds, I'm like, oh my God, that's brilliant. I just learned something that I'm going to know every time I put a nail in drywall now in 7 seconds. Like it's really fantastic.
And for me, like that's a bit like the reason I don't even like I'm not good at creating videos, but I don't like watching videos because I'm sorry, I'm impatient. I hate waiting to get through the 2.5 minutes of video. I'm like the person who like fast forwards the whole video through until I like get what I need. So that's why I like those little like that it is a 15-second cap on Instagram because I can waste 15 seconds of my life learning something important. I'm not going to waste 2.5 minutes. You know what I mean? So it's something that if you can put those tutorials or even use it as a way to invite people in. I was speaking with a client this morning and I was like, use it as a teaser for your video or your blog so that you pull them in with the video, give them a reason to want to watch your longer video on YouTube or whatever it is, or come over to your blog post. But you're using it in a way that pulls people in and gets them engaged and excited about it without giving everything away.
That's a really good point. There's a question that's just come up here on the side for you. What is the optimum frequency of posts that you would recommend?
I love and hate this question all at the same time because there's no right answer. Here's my answer, and it's very vague, but I tell people to post as often as you can consistently without going crazy. So whatever works for you, and I know that's not a good answer, but for some businesses, I follow a couple like, kid fashion accounts on Instagram because I have a baby girl now, and they post like 6-7 times a day, but it works for them because it's how they're posting. They're spread out and it's new content every time. They're thanking, a customer. They're using user-generated content. They're posting something about an upcoming release. So that works for them. Other people might only want to post once a day, depending on what they have, or it might only be once a week. Whatever it is, stay consistent. You don't want to be that person who comes on and posts 10 photos today, 8 photos tomorrow, and then disappears for 4 days, and then posts 3 photos and then disappears for 3 weeks. You don't want that kind of inconsistency. So find out what your kind of content schedule is. And I always recommend putting time aside every week, like plan out your week of posts kind of thing. Think about what you have coming up. Do you have things that, like, for example, I want to promote this Blab post, or, I have another thing coming up on Wednesday, or I have another project coming out on Friday. Plan out kind of what you want, and then you can kind of see, okay, I got one post every day. And you can trick people, just because you did something on Monday, you can post it on Tuesday if you need something for Tuesday's post. You don't have to post everything live. So work it out. I generally recommend 1 to 2 times a day is ideal, but some people just don't even have that much content. So find what's comfortable for you and work with that and then build up. And you might find, you start out with 1 a week, now you're 2 a week, now you're 1 a day, so you'll kind of build into a schedule that works for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I totally agree with the content calendar bit, even if it's not like you see those templates where it's like a spreadsheet in Excel and you got to fill out all these columns. It doesn't need to be that. I think sometimes I just do it in Google Calendar. Like I just put in my Google Calendar with a different color, the content pieces I'm going to do. I make sure that it makes sense. And then I decide based around that because I get Google to email me every morning about what my schedule is going to be because there is that feature in Google Calendar. And then I see, oh, I've got this going on. And so I kind of have a better idea of what's coming up so that I can then think about what you're saying, like timing. Am I going to be overwhelming? I still want to make sure I promote things so people see them. But I try to think, too, I get to see after a while which of my followers on Instagram are online in the morning, which ones check at lunch, which ones check while they're on the commuter train in the evening, or who checks before bed. And so if you're doing microlearning, for example, on a certain topic, like you want to show people something that takes maybe a series of 3 posts, then you would think about, do I want those all 3 to come out together so that people go boom, boom, boom? or do I want them to learn one and absorb that in the morning, learn one in the at lunch and absorb that, and then another one at night? So I think what just putting a little bit of thinking behind it can help so much.
It really does. That's a great point about different times, different audiences, because people do use them in completely different time frames, and in different geographic areas. I mean, that's the thing. Certain people, maybe in bigger cities, commute either on a train or some other way that they actually want to listen to audio or do things like that, where they want to have that distraction. Other people may be in a car where they don't have that, or they're a stay-at-home mom, so for them, middle of the day is a more effective time than an after-work commute time. So you have to definitely kind of know your audience and when they're engaging with your content. And depending on what it is, don't be afraid to repost, but use a different image. So let's say, for example, I was going to launch, a webinar, and I wanted to promote it in the morning to my morning audience. Use a photo to promote it, but then use the same message, the same promotion, just use a different photo so it doesn't look duplicative in your content. But now you're approaching your afternoon or evening people with the same message, so you're not missing anybody, but it doesn't look like you're like the same image over and over and over and over and over that's harassing people. As if you mix up the content that they're seeing, they don't think it's kind of overwhelming them with the same message.
Right, and I think the other good point with that is that not only change the image, but maybe the description of the webinar.
Yep.
So if your webinar is going to be around a certain topic, the first image could go with, we're going to talk about this in the webinar, and then the next one could be, and we're also going to talk about this, for example. So just to switch it up a bit, but it might actually be to your advantage to give people a little more insight into what you're going to be talking about on that webinar.
Absolutely. And that's the thing too, like the different time frames may have different audience. So that different message might appeal differently to the morning audience than an afternoon audience. And if you can tweak that to capture their attention, that's really beneficial.
For sure. And then are there things that you recommend to your clients or to yourself that in terms of little learning opportunities that you would say, this is a good thing to do, but this might not work so well on Instagram? Do you have some maybe tips around that or some ideas?
Well, you'll kind of learn what works for you. There's a couple things that I always recommend, which is that you have to use hashtags. That's inevitable on Instagram. And if you guys aren't using hashtags, you got to get in the world of hashtags. I hate hashtags on any other platform. I don't use them. But on Instagram, it really is the powerful tool. And so you're going to use them, but you fall into this, how many do you use? How do you use them? So if you're going to use them, first of all, make sure they're related to your industry or your topic, and find hashtags. Like, let's say you're doing something like we're talking about the Home Depot DIY type, tutorials. There's plenty of things. You can use hashtag tutorial, hashtag DIY, hashtag Home Depot. Like you've got hashtags that are related to that content, but then also maybe it's, related to a specific type of home improvement project. Maybe it's a kitchen renovation. So you would do hashtag kitchen renovations. So mix those in. So you want to go after the people that are looking for your content, not necessarily what you want to post about, but what they're looking for. So think about their kind of pain points and mix in those hashtags to make sure you're capturing that audience in the right way. And then another thing when it kind of comes to using hashtags is, how many? I say 5 to 10 is ideal. People tend to freak out sometimes and think that's too many. You can actually use up to 30. So 5 to 10 is not too many. And I recommend mixing in those popular and less popular. So like, let's say I use hashtag social media and hashtag social media marketing. Those ones are really popular. And if you look at that hashtag, within a matter of minutes, my post is buried in the archives. They move so fast. There's millions of posts, but it's an immediate hit. The other day I posted something, and I'm not even joking. In like 18 seconds, I had 42 likes. I almost took a screenshot because I couldn't believe it. Just that hashtag at that exact moment had such activity on it. But then again, if that was the only hashtag I used, after those first 30 seconds, I would get nothing else. So you mix in some of the less popular ones. This is where you might pick the specific thing. So let's say I was talking about Instagram marketing or an Instagram training. That's a less popular hashtag. So my content lasts longer in those hashtag searches so that they can last minutes, days, maybe even weeks. So make sure you're finding the best industry hashtags, but find popular ones and less popular ones. And if you're typing in the hashtag, as you start typing it in, you'll actually notice that it tells you the kind of most appropriate hashtags related to what you're typing in and how popular they are. You can see how many posts are associated. So anything with like a
Yeah.
couple hundred is really unpopular, which can be good because you can dominate that hashtag. Anything in the thousands to tens of thousands is kind of moderate, and anything with hundreds or millions of, hundreds of thousands or millions is definitely going to be a really popular hashtag. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because that was one thing I was thinking to mention is how you can see whether they're popular or not. And that's one feature I like that Instagram added this year where it kind of auto completes them for you with the number of posts that follow. Now, in terms of the CTA or call to action, I think that's an important thing to do when you're putting stuff out there for people to sort of, look at, read, etc. What advice would you give people in terms of using call to actions around Instagram?
First of all, use them. Don't use them on every post, but definitely use them. You have to use them. And there's a way you can do it, in kind of in your face if it's a really important call to action, which is putting the text right on the image. So you use a kind of a text overlay. There's a variety of apps. One that's universal for both Android and Mac is Photo Grid. And or InstaSize. It kind of goes back and forth with what it's called, but it's called Photo Grid. And you can do a text overlay right over top of your image before you upload it to Instagram. So, for example, I use this when I want people's advice on something or if I want their input. And I literally take a picture of me and I say, I need your input, see below. So that's their call to action. It stops them because they're not going to scroll past just a photo of me and be like, oh, there's a photo, Jen, double tap and scroll past. If the message is right there in the photo, it makes them pay attention to it. And then they're more likely to stop and read your caption, where now I'm putting in the second call to action, which is I'm looking for your help on picking out a blog post title. Or I'm looking for a new topic to write about. What would you like to hear about? Or something like that. So I'm asking them for more input now, but I've stopped them with that first call to action in the photo. So that's a really powerful way, but don't abuse it because then people start, again, getting desensitized to it and they'll kind of scroll past it if it seems, like every single time you're doing it. But then in your captions, you can put, your calls to action. So this is where you can direct people to whatever you want them to be doing. You want them to go to your website. You want them to sign up for a webinar. You want them to, register for your Blab session. You want them to read a blog post, whatever it is that where you have that learning material. So let's say when I do my blog posts, I say, click on the link in my bio to, catch today's blog post. And they can go right there and it goes right to my blog homepage. So you want to be able to put that call to action that gets them where they want them to go. Or maybe it's, download our video, go to YouTube, whatever it is, you want to have that material for them to get access to.
Yeah, that's really great. And it's worked for you because I have seen and participated in some of those call to actions you've had about the cover of your new ebook or something like that, which cover is better. And that's a really smart way to crowdsource it because I think when you have your A-B choices and let's say 80% of the people choose B, you know that your book is going to be a little more successful and noticed because people told you. Like, I think it's a really smart way. I've liked how you've done that.
Well, and you want to know my secret? Not only do I do it for that reason, but it's a great way to promote you're doing a new project. It's a great way just to get the word out there rather than being like, hey, I'm working on a book. Hey, I'm working on this. When you crowdsource for their input, it starts to get them excited about something before you even done anything. Like I still haven't even finished writing the book, but people already know about it because I'm having them help me pick a title, pick the cover art. You're getting them involved. And then now when it comes out, they almost like have to get it because they've been involved in its evolution. So it's a great way to build that kind of launch expectation.
Yeah, it's the one thing I love about Kickstarter, that you can find out whether your product's going to sell or not before you even start to make it. It's genius.
That's really true.
Yeah, it's so smart. We have some questions here on the side. Catherine has one here. What is the best way to gain followers beyond relevant hashtags?
Great question. Okay, so obviously, yes, using the hashtags and having people find you that way. If you want to gain followers in your specific industry or niche, start looking for what people in your niche and industry are doing. So are they going to conferences? Are they going to events? Are they attending webinars? What are they doing and what hashtag is associated with that event? So let's just say, for example, there's a conference. Recently, there was Content Marketing World. I think that was last month. And so they have their hashtag related to that. I know this is kind of still related to hashtags, but it's kind of different. So what I do is I cyber stalk the crap out of that hashtag. And I go through and I like almost everything on that hashtag, because everyone at that conference using that hashtag is my target audience. Those are the people I want to connect with. And now I'm liking all their content. They see me liking every one of their photos. They're like, who's this Jen Herman chick? And they come over, they realize, they look at my bio, they see my content, and they follow me back. So for example, depending on the size of the conference, I can gain anywhere from 50 to 200 followers over the period of a conference just by cyber stalking the crap out of those hashtags. So it
That's
depends
awesome.
on the event. You know, smaller conferences might not, obviously, like Content Marketing World is huge. I think there was like 14,000 people there or something. So it's a huge event. That's going to have a higher return than something that's maybe kind of a smaller local event. But even small local events are a great way to start getting involved with those people. Another thing you can do is start finding people that are engaging with others in your niche. So follow, you know, the kind of maybe bigger leaders in your industry and find out who's following them. This is a little time consuming, but find out who's following them and start liking and engaging with them. That's really the only way you're going to do it, is to like and engage with them. You can't just be like, hey, I'm here, come like me. So start liking their post, leave a comment, ask a question, you know, look for things that give you a chance to engage with them. And the more you build that relationship, the more likely they are to follow you and start engaging with you back.
Yeah, totally true. I totally agree with that. That conference is that's a great idea. And the good thing, like when you check out, for example, the conference you were at for Social Media Examiner and then Content Marketing World, that you know that that's the type of conference that Instagrammers are going to be at, and they're going to be using Instagram. For example, the conference I'm going into November, not so busy on the social media, so that wouldn't be a conference that I could take advantage of. But there are so many social media conferences out there nowadays that you totally can. So I think that's a great idea.
And that's like even things like, you know, let's say you are, you know, maybe you have a retail store and you're, you know, you sell, you know, a variety of designer fashions. Well, there's all the, you know, fashion weeks. And obviously there's New York Fashion Week is a big one, but we just had a San Diego Fashion Week. So a lot of cities do these things. And even if you can't piggyback necessarily off the big ones because they're just too big and too popular, go after those smaller kind of events, because those people are more likely to be even more engaged because they're more passionate about those small time environments.
Totally true. That's a good point. Anybody who's on this Blab right now, if you want to grab the open seat to ask a question, go for it. It's open. Feel free to join it if you want to ask Jen any questions live and in the flesh, quote unquote. We got another question that just, so that looks like they're suggesting a account, which is one of the questions actually that I was going to ask to you. Which accounts would you recommend people to follow, other than your own, of course, to see good use of Instagram, good use of helping people to learn things on the platform? Do you have any suggestions? While you're thinking, my first one to recommend would be National Geographic. I think based on what you were saying before, where they are almost using it like a blogging platform, and they will have a photo and then they'll explain below what's going on and maybe some conservation efforts or something. And I love it.
That's a great one.
Gabby has asked, can you pop in and ask a question? Sure, grab the seat anytime you want.
And so while we're waiting for Jeb in, I was going to say one of the accounts that I love, which is actually something people don't think about, is TSA. You know, the people who harass you when you get on the try to get on an airplane. Their Instagram account is actually really good, and they use it in a very educational way. Don't do this. Do this, things that they're doing in their communities. They highlight employees and things. So again, it's not necessarily something you would think of, but in terms of an educational platform, that's what they use it for.
It's very true. I love the TSA, and it just blows my mind when people try to take on a plane.
Oh my God, I know.
Hey, Jonathan, where are you calling from?
Hey, guys. I'm calling from Frankfort, Kentucky. Can everybody hear me okay?
Awesome. Yes. No audio problems with you, just with me.
Okay. I'm going to don my headphones here to make me look cooler than I really am. And that means I have to change a setting here. My apologies here.
No worries. We learned earlier about changing settings, so it's a good theme for today, actually.
Yeah. Like, I've had a lot of trouble today hopping in on Blabs and whatnot because I don't know if it's my internet or what it is, but The question that I have for Jen, and Jen, thanks for taking my call, as it were. I work on social media for a small business that's a wine shop here in Frankfurt. So we've just started Instagram, and
Good.
I was curious what you like
What you should be posting?
like what a business like ours should do on Instagram, with the caveats that we're not a business that can market to just anybody. We've got an age restriction because of the alcohol that we sell and serve, and we don't really have a way yet to sell online.
Okay. What I would do is I wouldn't focus so much on the selling side of things off the bat. I would build more, and this is a great topic in terms of the micro learning. Use it as more of an educational tool. How did the client or company that you're managing, how did they get started? Different times of the year for vineyards and wine and everything like that have different impacts. Are there certain impacts, like for example, being out here on the West Coast in California, we're having a serious issue with a drought, and how does that affect the grapes and their different vineyards, and is this season going to be a good bottle of wine or not so much because of the drought seasons? And use it as an educational platform. Use the videos or the photos to share these kind of tips about what's going on in the industry to educate your audience, as well as what's going on, like I said, with the business. So did you just get a new delivery of a great new wine that you're super excited about for this season? Things like that are coming in. So it's not that you're saying we have this for sale, but you're saying we just received this shipment of this vintage, this year, this brand, whatever it is, and show it from a behind the scenes perspective. Show the crates being offloaded into the store or being put up on display in the store, those kind of things, in a way to interact with people, so people know that new things are happening, what's going on, that you're promoting it without being like, hey, we have this for sale. And that way, nothing you're doing is in violation of any age restrictions, because you're just doing very educational. This is something we have in the store. You're not, trying to sell to people that could be underage. And look for user-generated content as well. So have a hashtag for your client's business that's related to, whether it's the name of their store or whatever it is, and have people that come in and buy their stuff post, the bottle of wine that they bought. That's with either they have a unique vintage or something. Have them posting that, sharing that, and then you guys can regram that. On that note, because there's an age restriction, if you are going to regram anything as a company with a 21 and over restriction, make sure you get written permission. You can do this through a direct message. You can get this through an email, but you want to ask them permission to regram their content, stating they are over the age of 21 and they give you the right to reuse their photo.
Okay. What about graphic standards? Should there be some sort of a standard that we employ and stick to when posting these pictures, or?
The standard is always the best you can create. No crappy photos. So you want to create, if you're going to create graphics, any sort of, announcements, things like that. I would even recommend putting those as an overlay over an image. And now you're going to want to make sure you have copyright. I don't want to dwell on that, but make sure you have the right to the images. So make sure they're images that were taken either by you or your client, or stock images that you purchased. So don't risk using somebody else's image. But if you have a great photo of a vineyard or something and you kind of have a text overlay on that, again, it pulls into the kind of theme of your customer without being over the top. But you don't want every photo to just be of that same vineyard image. You want to mix it up and have different images. But always the best lighting, the best environment, the best quality photos you can create. You never want to post something just for the sake of posting and have it look crappy.
Okay.
One thing, if I can suggest too, Jonathan, I like what Jen is suggesting in terms of education. I always think whenever we're getting on social media, we should be as helpful as possible. And one of the things I would love to see from your store, for example, if I was following you, is how should I store my wine? Why is it important to put it through a aerator or something like that? Or how long before you drink it should you take the cork off to let it breathe? all of these things are things that I'm always trying to learn more about. And should the glass be special? Should it be a different shape, and why? Those would be great things. And you're not necessarily selling your wine, but you're proving that you're helpful to people, and then you build an audience around what you're doing.
And if the store provides things, like if they sell wine glasses, you can use that educational tool of saying why different wine glasses have different effects. There was a big thing with stemless wine glasses, years ago, and everyone was like, well, a real, connoisseur would never use a stemless wine glass because then your hand's on the glass and you're warming up the wine. And, so you can kind of share whatever, either it's a trend or a reason for something, but then you can kind of end it with a call to action and say, to get your this type of wine glass or whatever it is, come into the store, we've got them in stock. So you can do an educational and then tag it up with a little bit of a call to action to still drive some traffic.
Yeah. One thing I like about the wine shop that I work with or work for is our logo is always on the wine glass. So you'll always have a branded image. If say you've got a bottle of the wine and then you've got a glass paired up with it, and obviously here's the glass, here's the wine. It will have the logo there, so it will help with that brand recognition there too.
That's great.
So Jen, let me ask you a question on the flip side. If you were following a wine shop, what kind of, and maybe you've answered this already, but what kind of things would you find most informative and helpful on an Instagram account of a shop like this?
Well, kind of like we were saying, anything that's educational in terms of how to use, different tools, whether it's, decanters, wine glasses, aerating tools, any of that kind of stuff that provides an educational value. Mm-hmm. Think about it like we were talking about with the Home Depot, type tutorials. You can create little stop motion photos or stop motion videos based on photos or short snippets of video that you could use that would kind of show the process of how to properly decant a bottle of wine. Anything like that that's, that kind of educational content. You can, like we said, talk about different ways to, enjoy your bottle of wine. Should it be refrigerated? If so, to what temperature? People love to learn. And if you can give them some sort of like advantage that, the next time they go to their friend's house for a wine party and they have this like fancy little piece of knowledge that they got, it makes them feel special and important. So if they get that from you, they're going to, know that you guys are the source of this information and they'll keep coming back for it.
Okay, that's cool.
That's great.
Jen, what's your favorite wine that you've ever consumed?
I love Ecco Domani. That's my go-to. It's a white wine. They have a great Pinot Grigio that I love, and I've Instagrammed them numerous times. They've actually reposted one of my photos once. I had my desk all set up at nighttime with a glass of wine working on a blog post, and they regrammed it to their audience, so that was cool. But they're my favorite.
Cool. Awesome. And Jamie, what's your favorite wine that you've ever consumed?
I'm really hooked on Carmeneras from Chile, but I love the McManus Cabernet Sauvignon. And I believe McManus is California, correct?
I think so, but I'm still learning my wines too. Full disclosure, I used to work there as a bartender, and I knew a whole lot more then. My palate's a little rusty, so I need to get back down there and just drink a crap ton of wine. And
that doesn't sound like a bad thing to have to do in your job at all.
No, I mean it really isn't. I guess I'm making myself sound like I'm suffering from my art, but no. We do this wine list every month, and so. That could be obviously a way that we could pick up content as well for any of our platforms, Instagram or not. But yeah, like I would usually work the Saturday morning shift, and nobody would come into the store because it's Saturday morning and everybody was out partying late Friday. So I would just set up all the wines that we had and taste them. It was great. Loved it. I guess I need to go back there on Saturdays and just start tasting wines again. But I have education, information, and then reposting user-generated content with permission, obviously, and no crappy photos, obviously. And if y'all are ever in Frankfort, Kentucky, stop by Capital Cellars, tell them that Jonathan Gaby sent you. And
Awesome.
if we have our Echo Domini or McManus Cab Sav, you guys could get a drink on me.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for your questions. They were great.
Do you have anybody else that's looking to jump in live?
I'm not sure. I'm just checking to make sure we haven't missed any questions. Looks not like. This is what I love about Blab is there's been some good conversation going on the side there and some good suggestions. Krishna D, thanks for your great suggestion. She was saying collaborating with other people such as recipe matches, etc., asking suppliers for images. Those are all really great suggestions. So that's great. And then she's also said here, checking out what other big alcohol beverage brands do on Instagram to see that they about compliance and guidelines and things, because that's something that I forget too. Is I'll go to a site of like a liquor company or something, and I'll see that you have to click something about your age, and I always forget about that because I've been of legal age for so long now that I kind of forget what it was
and it's
like.
No matter what business you are, and I don't want to go off on a tangent because I can get going on this topic for a while, but no matter what business you are, if you deal with anything that has a legal age limit, which let's say, alcohol companies or anything like that, that's, they have a 21 and over, in the US and Canada. Other countries may not have those stipulations, but depending on where you live and what you're dealing with, there's that issue. But even think about things when you're posting something with a minor as a child. People even like, let's say I go to Disneyland and I post a photo, of me and my family at Disneyland, and Disneyland wants to repost it. They really need to get permission from me to showcase my child without, facing possible lawsuits. So no matter what you're posting, if there's a child in the image, you always should have some sort of written permission from the parent. And like I said, make it written. So if you DM the original user, ask for permission, verify that they're over a certain age, that kind of thing, then you can get that permission is considered written, or email or those types of things. But just, keep those kind of things in mind when you are regramming people's content. And also, it's one thing to regram it to Instagram, which is if you're taking it from a public profile and putting it on your public profile and you put the regram app that has the watermark and all that kind of stuff, that's fine. That's expected. That's, especially if you've said use a certain hashtag to get featured on our account, you're basically opening them up saying if you use this hashtag, you're going to get reused. But if you ever want to take that photo and reuse it in any other context outside of Instagram, you need permission. And you need them to basically waive their rights. You can't just be like, oh, well, I regrammed it to my Instagram account and I'm going to put it in my blog post. And then in that blog post, you have ads that are generating revenue for you. Technically, you're now using their content to make money. And you could be liable for restitution and charges back to them if they wanted to come after you. So make sure if you're ever going to repost something that you get their permission.
Yeah, good points. Awesome. Well, I don't see any more questions coming and no one's grabbing the seat. So I really appreciate this, Jen. I'm so happy this is your first one.
I know. I'm so glad I made it since the first one.
Oh, that's great. I love it. I've recorded it, so it'll be up on YouTube probably in the next 5 minutes or so, and then I'll be sharing that link with you so you can share further. And I wanted to say congratulations on the birth of your beautiful daughter. She's so freaking cute.
I know, isn't she? I know I'm biased, but she's really cute.
I love the picture you put the other day with her cute face, and you're like, who's going to get angry at being woken up at 4 a.m. when you have that kind of face?
Oh, I know. That's the thing. She's like a 4:30, 5 o'clock morning wake up, but, then she gives you that big-ass smile and just stares at you. It's like, oh, all right. I don't need sleep.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And thanks for joining me on here. I really appreciate it. And I hope we can collaborate on something else again soon.
Yeah, I look forward to it. And thank you for everybody who tuned in. We know we had some late joiners and everything, but I hope you guys got everything out of it. And if you have any questions or anything, feel free to hit me up on Instagram or stop by the blog. It's Jen's with 2 N's because I was born in the 80s with 8 million other Jennifers. So it's Jen's Trends on pretty much every platform. So feel free to come hit me up for questions or, check out my blog posts. I've written over 100 blog posts dedicated to Instagram marketing. So if you have any questions about it, pretty much you'll find it there.
Excellent. That's so great. And thanks so much again. Then enjoy the rest of your day out there in San Diego.
I will. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Okay, cheers, everyone. Thanks for joining.